Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today. Well, election 2024 has begun. It's almost official. Vice President Kamala Harris is about to be declared the nominee. They're going to determine that, I understand, according to press reports, before they get to Chicago. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the protest in Washington as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was meeting Congress. He was speaking before Congress. That is interesting. It is interesting. It just gets more and more interesting. And then, of course, everyone wants to talk about how this presidential campaign, particularly on the Democratic side now, is going to shape up. John Nichols from The Nation will be talking with us about that in the next hour. We're going to have Congressman Jonathan Jackson, who was actually at the Benjamin Netanyahu speech. Everybody didn't boycott, and he's one of those persons who, and he will explain. He said, "No, I want to hear what he's got to say." Don't agree with it. He's actually met him before he was congressman, and certainly as congressman, as a member of the Foreign Relations Committee. So we're going to hear what he's got to say about that, and where we go from here. Because according to the Lancet study, which is one of the most respected medical journals in the world, at least 186,000 Palestinians have been killed, not the 38,000. Yet makes your eyebrows arch up in the air, Attorney Keith Lamar. Not 38,000, not 40,000, 186,000, and they project that 500,000 will be killed by the time this conflict is resolved. So this is not a war on Hamas. This is a war on the Palestinian people. Let's clear on that. And it's our money and our machinery that's making that happen. It's got to stop. It's actually against our own laws. Yeah, I'm putting it right there because that's what we have to do. The Bible tells you, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But guess what? The other side of that is this. What you have done unto others will be done unto you. Everybody, you got to be careful. You keep on living. That's what my parents used to tell me and my siblings when we were growing up. Jesse, Johnny, Yusuf, Jackie, hey, watch it. Keep on living. Keep on living. But let's start off with what a prosecutor does. What is a prosecutor? Indeed, the GOP is beginning to attack Vice President Harris on what she did as a prosecutor. What does a prosecutor do? And what did she do? I mean, and indeed, one of the things that bedeviled her campaign when she ran for president in 2019, and she had to abort the campaign because she really didn't do well. Coming out of California, when she launched her campaign, people said, what she did with Black men, the incarceration of Black men, she participated in that became a problem. I don't think we should avoid this issue, everybody. In fact, I was on Channel 11 PBS here in Chicago last night. I'm going to post it and you all can check it out. You don't avoid a vulnerability. Actually, as my father said, what you do is when you see the meat is raw, you cook it. Okay. And then, everything else can even out. So that's something for us to think about. She can even say, well, these were the laws at the time, or this is what I thought at the time. And now I've changed my mind. I've seen some other things. Some people say, look, I did not know the law was going to play itself out that way. And so, I'm here to change that. There's no harm in that. There's nothing to me that is hypocritical about that. And you know what? If you change the law and make things right, okay, it's all good for me. How about that? It's just like we have to look at criminal justice reform, but we need to understand what prosecutors do and why you need to vote for them because they are voted in. You either vote for them or you decide not to vote at all. But they're public officials. So think about that. We've got Attorney Linda Bernard, police commissioner and she's part of the board. And so she is one of the commissioners on the board of the city of Detroit's police department. She's also the first Black American to earn a master's in law from the University of Pennsylvania Law School. And we're very, very excited to have her today once again. And Attorney Keith Lamar is going to get things started with us, a former prosecutor. Indeed, he was the head of the Black Prosecutors of the United States, their association. And I am so glad that you're here because I don't think we know or we're really clear on what a prosecutor does. And we know we face them in court, right? But whom do they work for? Do they, I mean, because we see them working very closely with the police, right? But do they work for the police? Do they work for the people? I mean, what's the job?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show this morning. I really appreciate it. Love the show.
Nice and early.
Oh yeah, got to get up nice and early. You got to get up early.
Ah.
Got to get to it. I'll tell the people now. First of all, a prosecutor it's a tough job. A lot of people don't appreciate how much work goes into being a prosecutor, and I think that we should look into what prosecutors do. So, for instance, a prosecutor does not work for the police; it works for the people. All right. So, the prosecutor, if you get burglarized, if you get robbed, if something happens to you that is criminal, that prosecutor is going to be the one to enforce that law against the person that did the crime. That's pretty much their main job, is trying to keep the community safe. So there are some rules in place that have been bad in the past, but guess what? If you don't have a person of color to go in there and be a prosecutor, you'll never know what the rules are. You'll never know how the system is really working. So to get upset with somebody for actually being a prosecutor, to me, is a little crazy. Because when I was a prosecutor, it showed me an inner working of what the system is going on, and it gave me the ability to know that, hey, we can do some things to fix it versus always being outside trying to fix the inside. Sometimes you need to take it like a pill, right? Mm-hmm. Take the pill, digest it, let it fix your insides. You can't always work from the outside. You can't just put a Band-Aid on everything.
But don't you kind of like need to do both? Because that's what Johnny Cochran did, right? He said, let me become a prosecutor, and then I can be a better criminal defense lawyer. Is it, well, explain that thinking. Okay.
So essentially, it's kind of like what I do now. You go in there, you learn the system. You can learn how to work the system, learn how to enhance the system, also learn how to defeat the system. And so I look at it where, being a prosecutor gives you a chance to actually learn, like, hey, I don't believe this is right. How can I fix it? All right. And so now you become a defense attorney. You can learn the different rules of the road, not rules of the road, but rules of the courtroom, and say, you know what, we're going to fix this. This is how it used to work over there, but we put some different rules in place when I was a prosecutor. So now that I'm a defense attorney, I can actually do some things for you that help. And so when I look at Vice President Harris, she should be actually applauded for what she did as a prosecutor, especially a Black female prosecutor, how high she rose in those ranks. So to be punished for that is just, I would call it, at the end of the world, lack of better words, this hating, right? You got to hate. You're hating on somebody for going there, doing their job, trying to protect their community. So when I was a prosecutor in Fulton County, my job wasn't to lock up all the Black people. No, that doesn't make any sense. My job was to protect the community and also learn the system. And so I did that. And I think we did some things to enhance the community as well while I was there. So at the end of the day, I think a prosecutor role is important, is vital. Just like having a Black police officer is important. Why would you not want to have a Black police officer?
Well, Black thinking.
Black thinking, right? Well, hey, let me tell you, you want somebody on your side everywhere you go. So you can't just have all white pastors, all white doctors, all white anything. You got to have a mixture of somebody everywhere, because that's how the world moves forward. You can't just move forward with one single race. We got to all come together out here.
So you think that the attacks upon Vice President Harris when she was not Attorney General, but prosecutor, that's what they're specifically zeroing in on that. And yesterday we did a show about this. And what was interesting about the show was that we had some people who supported her and some people who did not. We had a gentleman by the name of Reginald Geis, who should be out, given this First Step program that President Trump enacted, but he was transferred to another prison. And so he's kind of been lost in the system. Mm-hmm. But, people do forget, look, I'm agnostic about this, everybody, really. If someone does something that is helpful to us, I give them the credit for it. Mm-hmm. It's just, that's all there is to it. And what President Trump did with criminal justice reform was good in that respect. I mean, it was born of his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, whose father, extremely wealthy businessman. He was jammed by the system by Governor Chris Christie, by the way. Governor Chris Christie delivered, for example, a video of his brother-in-law having an extramarital affair to a family event, so his sister could see it. So the wife, who was Jared Kushner's sister, could see it. He was after the Kushner family. So Yeah, Jared Kushner walked into the White House said, "Yeah, I'm going to deal with this because I've seen the rot in the system."
Head on.
You can't make that up. Oh my God! But look, I mean, hey, I'm sorry it happened to him because that must have been devastating. I don't care who you are. I would never wish that on anybody. Okay. That having been said, it did happen, and it made a reformer out of him. How about that?
I bet.
So,
Hey, come to your front door. That's what's gonna happen to you.
when it comes to your front door, which is my point yesterday, it had come to the front doors of several of the persons who were guests on the show yesterday, and they see the corruption in the system,
Mhm.
and they said, we feel that she could have acted differently. She could have done something else. Maybe she could have done more, but she certainly didn't have to do what she did. And therefore, and they were passionate,
Yeah.
Attorney Lamar. I
Yeah.
mean, that of course, and as the former president of the Black Prosecutors of the United, what is that? What is the exact name of the organization?
National Black Prosecutors Association.
Okay, just like the National Bar Association. And really, all the Black prosecutors, you have your own organization. There's not a lot of you, but you're a powerful lot. That having been said, um, because you all talk with each other, and for the most part, you all are progressive. I
Yeah.
mean, you are like, wait a minute. The reason I came here was because of what I saw, and I wanted to prevent it.
Exactly.
And I think that's what I've heard her say. But people around California and
Mhm.
around the country, particularly those of us who had, like I have, had loved ones. My uncle just got out of prison. He'd been there more than 30 years
Mhm.
on foolishness. In fact, when my brother was in law school, he said he is now part of the American legal canon, his case. And his case is at the heart of prosecutorial misconduct.
Mm.
And even as he was reading it, my uncle was still in prison. They couldn't get him out. So there's that.
So,
And so talk to me about that because people, some of them, you have some jealousy, sure.
yeah.
But a lot of people these people who were on the show yesterday would love to support someone who supports them. And they are so adamant, Attorney Lamar. They're
Mhm.
like, there's no way that I would support her. No, 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 no. I said, okay. And I wanted to hear them and I wanted them to be heard.
And that's understandable. But the thing about it is, when I was a prosecutor, had there been cases that I felt bad about? Yes. Now you understand when you're a prosecutor, unless you're the elected, sometimes you have to prosecute cases that you might feel, I don't know, and
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, the people that are really mad are some of the people that have, you might have had to prosecute, but there's also another side to that story. There always is. There's
Mm-hmm.
victims on that side. You have victim of rape, victim of murders, family members. Those people are happy as they can be that somebody came and spoke for them when nobody else could speak for them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always going to be two sides to the story. And I think it's really about how you were as a prosecutor. The prosecutor job I think, is a phenomenal job. But if you're a bad prosecutor, you're terrible, right? Because of the position and the power that you hold. So I would hate to have somebody be a hypocrite as a prosecutor because that's dangerous. But if you have the right kind of person being a prosecutor, that can change your whole community. Okay. Because you got the right people knowing your community, knowing what's going on in your community, that can lower crime. That can have a better atmosphere around the entire community as a whole. Your prosecutor can do that. They have a lot of power.
Well, what was her reputation because your organization has been around for a minute,
Oh, yeah.
and so many of you know her,
Mm-hmm.
and you know her as a prosecutor, and you also understand the politics of where everybody, where you're prosecuting. The interesting thing about California is that as liberal and as progressive, if you will, as San Francisco is, California has a completely different side to it as well. California, I mean, you got to balance a whole lot in California. It
Mm-hmm.
is rainbow. It is also super white.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole lot of things. You've got a heavy concentration of Jewish people in California, but you also have a heavy concentration of Persians, of Arabs. It's just you're walking a fine line when you do politics in California.
Oh yeah, you are. I mean, the thing about being a prosecutor, every region, even within the state, is very different. So where you're prosecuting North California and San Francisco, or you're in LA, or you're in San Diego, each region is very different. I'm here in Georgia, so Atlanta's laws are the same, but the way we prosecute are very different versus Macon, Georgia, or Savannah, Georgia, or
Mhm.
anywhere in the backwoods. And so if you don't want to have a person of color be a prosecutor at that point, you're really losing out, because now you go down to Macon and they say you don't have anybody of color there to help know what you're going through. That prosecutor might come harder than you understand. A culture is a part of it as well. People understand the East race has different cultures, different things that are acceptable versus not acceptable. For instance, if you whoop your kid, a lot of people might go to jail for that. People don't understand that, right? Now
And
imagine,
black folks are like,
yeah, you can go to jail for that. And so you got to have somebody in the office say, hey, we're not gonna, because it's discretion as well as a prosecutor, right? You have to compare. And so you might have somebody like myself say, you know what, wait a minute, let's slow down. We don't need to lock Miss Jackson up now. What are we doing?
What you put me in it for?
I said we don't need to, though. I said we don't.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, attorney.
But I say that because you need to have somebody on your side that is actually.
That's right. Yo, she was, that's right. She was what is it? She was guilty of breaking the peace, whatever they used to call it. Yeah, but she doesn't generally curse people out. Like, she must have been pushed there.
You had to be pushed to the edge. But no, you got to have somebody to understand that, because discretion is key. And then if you don't have anybody in there that can speak on your behalf from the prosecutor's side, now you're still in there dealing with legal battles that you shouldn't have to be dealing with. You know, and so I look at it where, you got to look at what that particular person did as a prosecutor, but punishing somebody for being a prosecutor is just out of control, because you need them. You need them.
Did she have a good reputation as a prosecutor?
I believe she did. She seemed to be very knowledgeable of the law, good trial attorney. So nobody ever said anything bad about her.
Okay, well, I'm bringing you in, Attorney Linda Bernard. And of course, we've been talking with the former president of the National Association of Black Prosecutors, former Fulton County prosecutor, Attorney Keith Lamar. Family on the show. You've been here more than once, so now you stuck with us, Attorney Lamar. No and Attorney Linda Bernard, she's stuck with us too. Indeed, she's one of the founding members of Operation Push. And she is also, she works in the Coleman Young administration. She is now part of the police board in Detroit. And she is one of their commissioners. But she is also the first, she's argued several cases before the Supreme Court in Michigan, and she's won them all. And she is first Black person to get a master's in law from the University of Pennsylvania's law school. I give you all of that because I think it's important for us to know. Sometimes people in the listening audience don't know, as they're questioning the qualifications of Vice President Harris and so many people, we over-index in achievement so that we can get to where we need to be. In other words, we know we have to, a bachelor's won't do. I got to get 10 masters and I better finish at the top of my class. I can't finish in the middle. I mean, that's just how it works. But Attorney Bernard, what are your thoughts? Because she has really been taking hits on having been a prosecutor.
I want to go back for a moment to what Attorney Lamar just said, and to give you some form of context. Many people apply for the prosecutor's office, either state or federal. One of the benefits to it is that it's a great resume builder. That's because the prosecutor's office or U.S. Attorney's office is an esteemed position. But more importantly than that, as Mr. Lamar knows, the training you get as a prosecutor, Santita, is intense. I mean, you think you know something when you finish law school, but you actually know nothing, zero. And what you get in terms of litigation training, in terms of training on the court rules, in terms of training on legal precedent, is excellent, whether you want to really be a prosecutor or not. The training, the investment that the prosecutor's office makes in its litigators is substantial. Now, the prosecutor is an elected official, and generally people like to think that person went through the training that the U.S. Attorney's Office or the prosecutor's office in Chicago has given its lawyers, but in many times they have not, because it's not required. It's an elected office. It's in many instances a popularity contest, and it's like, well, I've been a lawyer for 10 years, or that's this or that or the other. That doesn't mean that you've been a litigator. That doesn't mean you've ever been before a judge. And it certainly doesn't mean that you know criminal law, or if you're for the civil bench or something, or that you know civil law. It is a name recognition contest, and that goes back to how much money, in large measure, you can put into becoming the prosecutor for Cook County or any other county in the United States. The issues with respect to Kamala are quite frankly murky. I'm not clear about what her experience was in a courtroom as a litigator prior to the time she became prosecutor. Her entire career was a charmed career because of Willie Brown. He was her lover and her biggest supporter by far, and that's a fact.
But how would that impact her career in the courtroom?
It doesn't, wait a minute, because he can put her in the right place to get the right training, to get the right exposure that myself or Miss Lamar or someone else could never get. I mean, her career is built on that relationship. Her magical ascension, if you will, is built on the resources, the money, the influence that Willie Brown had. I know nothing of how she earned it. I mean, I don't believe she earned it. It was all based on relationships. Like, if I was Reverend Jesse Jackson's daughter, I have 10 legs up on Linda Bernard or Keith Lamar. I mean, let's face it.
Well, but if they like Reverend, if they don't like it. Well,
no, but I'm just saying.
Look, my parents said, you will inherit our friends and our enemies, neither of whom you've earned. You didn't earn their friend. And well, I'm sorry about the enemies, but if you're gonna take the friends, you got to take that too.
that is a fact. But Willie Brown was the president of California, which is essentially a country. Quite has a GNP greater than most countries in the world. So he's the president and was for years, and was extraordinarily good at what he did and how he maneuvered and what he did. He created Kamala Harris because he loved her. So, okay. It cost him his marriage. He did lots of things.
Well, no. He was already separated, and he and his wife hadn't. Let me just say that, because they've been very public about this.
I'm sorry.
He and his wife were already separated.
Oh, I know.
And they had it didn't cost him his marriage, because he's still married to her, to his wife, and because they have an agreement, because he was going to, people have all kinds of things that they work out in their marriages.
I agree.
But she did say, let me, I just want to complete this thought, though, to give people clarity, that when he was sworn in as mayor of San Francisco, having been head of the state legislature, because he was the most powerful man in California politics.
No question.
Gavin Newsom, Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi, all of these people will tell you that that was the ring I had to kiss, and it's true. And Maxine Waters. Absolutely. But what she did say publicly was, like, because he and Kamala were together at that time, she said, she can be there, but I will be holding the Bible. So there's that. Attorney Bernard, I just, wanted some clarity, because she didn't break up the marriage.
Well, but it was, I understand that she was the cause for the separation.
No.
And that she would go places, obviously, where his wife would be, and he did a lot of things for him. I mean, he would shut down Nordstrom's right there on Union Square so she could have a private shopping day, she and her friends, all these kind of things. I mean, he was extraordinarily public about this relationship. Mm-hmm. In any event, so she was placed in key positions to have key exposure in order to, if you will, rise. I mean, I don't know who paid for law school. I don't believe she did. I don't know how this all happened, but in any event, and he put her in these places to become, if you will, the prosecuting attorney for San Francisco. So this was, as you say, it was manufactured from the beginning. She's not a Keith Lamar or Linda Bernard who did all this on her own, not even remotely. But in any event. So
well, let me ask you this.
But let me go.
Well, no. Before you continue, because you gave us a background, and quite frankly, Attorney Lamar, that's part of the campaign. Mm-hmm. And so these are things you cannot avoid. Mm-hmm. You cannot avoid this discussion. So I hear you, Attorney. Yeah. But how does that Do you think that that's something that's a consideration? Because I've heard some people who do resent the all that Willie Brown gave her. They are resentful of that.
Oh, I don't have what he did for her. It put her from, let's say, from grade school into college. She was suddenly in rarefied air as a prosecutor. I don't know if she ever had been in a courtroom before that, and that's a very good question. And I guess the people will look it up if she ever did any real legal work. It was my perception that she did not. She got to be a prosecutor like instantly. So I mean, the prosecutor who, and the prosecutor is important because the prosecutor usually has hundreds of millions of dollars at their disposal in order to hire other lawyers, do all the things they've got to do, have all the labs, all the research, all the investigators in the world. And see, that's why it's important, Santita, whether it's your brother or anybody else, when you're going to course against the full force, and the prosecutor represents either federal or state, the full force of the government and the government resources. What Attorney Keith now is in private practice. I'm in private practice. When I'm dealing with that, I'm dealing with a machine. It's not a person on the other side. It's a machine that has the police, the investigators, the forensic. They got everything for free. And my poor defendant has nothing but me or Attorney Keith Lamar to help him or her. It comes back to our ability to advocate in large measure before a jury. That's the sine qua non. Because if it's just a judge, oh, okay, but your ability to communicate with, quote, our people is what's critical. Because here comes a prosecutor, but here the police with all their badges and stuff on, looking like, generals and everything like that. And they have all these experts and all this stuff going on. And you can get some of that done for free for a defendant, but most of it you cannot. You can never get the depth of it as a prosecutor. So here she is. She's catapulted into this position. I don't know how she got there, but I know she got there politically. So that's Willie Brown, that for sure. Okay, so she got there politically, and when she gets there, she is very controversial. One, because there's people that are still in jail and people who have still been prosecuted as a result of the decisions that the prosecutor makes. Because in her divisions, they have recommendations, but she makes a final call on anything that's important that she wants to pursue. But one of the programs that she initiated in California, which was extremely controversial, was the school dropout program, which sentenced parents to a year in jail and a $2,500 fine if their kid was truant. I mean, it's the most, I think, the most controversial program in the country as it relates to schools and kids and parents. Parents don't have that kind of money, as you know, because most of them are just ordinary people with limited income, so to speak, even a two-family household. But she viewed it as your failure to respond. You fail your responsibility to kids. You will face, quote, the full consequences of the law. Her truancy law was unbelievable. Later, after she got into politics deeper, when she was AG and all that, Attorney General, she apologized for the arrest and the incarceration of mothers and fathers who are working their tail off in order to provide for their kids. And you do your best. Sometimes many parents leave before even their kids leave for school. And in California, many people work two jobs because it's so very, very expensive. Chicago too, Detroit probably less. So because of the standard of living and the cost of living. So she did this, but she later apologized for the arrests and the incarcerations. And the other thing that was interesting is that she has several high-profile cases that involved African-American men. And she was charged with prosecutorial misconduct on several of those cases because she held back permanently exculpatory evidence. One was for a man named George Cage, who had a 70-year sentence, 70 years, on a sex abuse charge. The case was dismissed and then later reinstated on a technicality. This man is blind and still in prison, and Harris refused to withdraw the prosecution. So there are issues like that. There's a disconnect, in my view, for Kamala Harris with ordinary people. She doesn't claim to be black. That's number one. Let's keep this.
No, she does.
She said, wait a minute, hold it, let me finish. She
Okay.
says that she is Asian and Jamaican. That's not Black
No.
American. Black American is me and you and Attorney Key Lamar and others. Let's get this straight. I mean, it's like what Tiger Woods
but
said.
I did.
What did Tiger say he was?
No, I'm saying I did go to school with her.
You know what he
And
is.
maybe in the context of Howard, she considered herself to be black, but what she did also do was embrace her Indian heritage. And but this is also an issue I think that we're also talking about, and that's another conversation we can have, Attorney Bernard and Attorney Lamar, about foundational Black Americans, because there is a discussion now, and sometimes it becomes a fight about how people identify, particularly with the Black American struggle, which paved the way for all of our brothers and sisters in the diaspora to come here. And so there's that. But you were making your point, because a lot of people are calling you a Trump supporter. That's what John Walsh said. Someone said that you're jealous of her. I know she's not. Renee Criswell said she won statewide office. Was that based solely on sleeping with Willie Brown? She
Yes.
her way to become a U.S. senator. Didn't she have any talent? And well, typically when people express a viewpoint that when express her viewpoint, they call you a Trump supporter, and that's not fair. Everybody, we need to stop
Trump
doing.
is not a boogeyman. I mean, you can I can support some policies of white conservatives and some policies of Black conservatives, some policies of white liberals, some policies of Black liberals. I mean, we've identified him as the boogeyman, and it makes no sense. When I have these conversations with people, I can't believe it. I say, guess what? Donald Trump knows what a woman is. That's number one. It's not a person who cuts off his testicles, cuts off his penis, and puts breasts on his and makes that woman of the year. Donald Trump would never do that. At least he knows what a woman is. Thank you. He knows that a man like Lamar should not, like Keith Lamar here, should not compete against me or you in sports. He's got that much sense. So if that's Republican, if that's Trump, then I'm Trump. Because we have gotten so far away from common sense as a country. Yesterday, what happens? The damn Chinese and the Russians jointly fly in our airspace. Pardon me? So these coalitions are being built, and we're sitting around talking about dumb stuff, as opposed to who has the ability to lead and has sense enough to lead our country. How dare she ignore? I can't stand him, but that's not the point. But I totally support the Israeli people. Netanyahu. How do you ignore the address of a president who's in your country, who's before your legislature, and you go to a sorority event? Pardon me? I mean, these choices, this blindness to how you take care of it. Even if I hated him, if he was the head of apartheid, it wouldn't. And I don't like Netanyahu at all. And I think he should be forced out. That's a whole separate issue. But he can be the head of apartheid. I still want to hear what he's got to say. I want to be present and personal. I want him to know that I'm there and that I'm watching. So I go to a sorority event and drink tea.
Well, it wasn't
pink and green. Oh, Linda's so cute.
But Donald Trump also does the same thing, man. He go play golf in the middle of a war.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Donald Trump does the same thing. He plays golf in the middle of war. He did that while he was president. He also was given millions of dollars before he even knew how to make money. So he was blessed with that. Having a millionaire family is pretty impressive. So when you start off with money in your pocket versus having to get it out the mud, it's different on how you go about your life. So
quicksand.
Sleeping.
Quicksand.
Some of us would rather be in that position. So
yeah, but
I can't discriminate against him because he's privileged.
But no. But then the question then becomes, and You know what? Honestly, I didn't know the conversation would take this turn, but I'm glad that it has, because these are not just talking points. This is the argument that is being made about her as Trump support. There's a Sabby Salvati. She's a brilliant Black podcaster. I listen to her podcast all the time, and she reported, and it is true, you're watching even now Trump support grow in the Black community. And some of it is rooted in Attorney Lamar and Attorney Bernard, her record as a prosecutor. When she went after these Black parents became very angry. And she gave a speech, and they showed the video. But I think her laughter is like a nervous tick. And
Oh, so yeah, I call her Giggles. Her name is not.
well,
All
now
I know is Giggles, and he's Mumbles.
well, no,
Biden is Mumbles.
well,
She's
no,
Giggles.
no, but let's not refer to people pejoratively.
That's
Well, no,
fine.
I got you, but let's keep the issues where they
Giggles.
are. So, what'd you say? So transphobia is okay on your show, John Walsh? No. But the transsexual
It's not
issue is
transphobia.
well, one moment, because this is something I need to explain to the audience who listens to this show with my name on it. I do not believe that anyone should be diminished. I do not believe that anyone should be degraded. I don't believe that anyone should be hurt, should be killed because of their orientation or their thought processes. That having been said, the whole issue of transsexualism is very unsettled science. You've got psychology, you've got biology, um, and you've got sociology. And biology cannot change.
Correct.
It cannot. That having been said, I don't understand the psychology behind that. And I'm beginning to see the sociology behind that. And so that's something you can't just call people transphobic, because phobia is an unrealistic and an unwarranted fear of something. I can tell you, Linda is not fearful, but you should not label someone as being phobic or hateful or bigoted simply because they have questions or because they have a point of view that does not adhere to yours. Okay, because a good many women, um, when I've talked to members of the transgender community, they will confront me and say, because they want to know where you stand. Am I this? I'm as much a woman as you are. No, you're a different kind of woman, and that's a different story. Because as a young lady, when I moved into womanhood, and all of you know what I mean, because I don't want to be graphic, because I like to keep things appropriate. You are socialized very differently when it comes to when your parents understand and when the people in your community understand that you could become pregnant.
Very
Something
much.
that the transgender community doesn't have to deal with is every 28 days or so, there is, for about 30 or 40 years of a girl's life, a woman's life, when you take measure of your health. That's different. Um, and if Caitlyn Jenner wants to be on my side or be part of my community, then Caitlyn, number one, needs to give 30% of her income back. Because if Caitlyn Jenner had come out of the Olympics in 1976, number one, she would not have gotten the shine. And she would not have earned all of the money that she earns. Black women still earn 69 cents to every dollar that a white man makes. White women earn about 80 cents. All of us don't earn the money that we deserve. So we can go on and have that discussion another time. But let's not unfairly label people. Don't do that. Let's not do that. And everybody, let us be careful. Louis Chewy says that Trump will be a dictator. The system is not even designed for you to be a dictator.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out.
With all due respect, it doesn't work like that. As we could see, as we've watched President Biden struggle with Attorney Lamar and Attorney Bernard, um, it's very clear that the presidency is not just run by one person. You've got a lot of different elements in place that keep the presidency as an institution going. The reports have now come out that members, the heads of the intelligence agencies, because there was a big fight, and there's still a big fight over him now. You can see that in this assassination attempt, with how that area was secured and not secured. The question has been, they blocked him from getting information. We're beginning to see that as we examine the Kennedy assassination. So everybody, let's just, and I love you too, Louis Chewy, and so everybody, let's kind of pump the brakes a bit and be open to hearing different points of view. You don't have to agree with them. You don't. But let's be respectful of each other. Okay? Attorney Bernard has a point of view, and she's got decades of legal experience. Attorney Lamar has a point of view, and he has a couple of decades of legal experience. But no, I mean, but that's not diminishing. I mean,
No, no, no.
but it's also, as a woman, we are all very sensitive to women who have the charges that have been leveled at the vice president's personal life. We're very sensitive to it, Attorney Lamar, because it puts us all in a bit of a box, and I know her to be someone who has worked very hard.
Mhm.
That having been said, that's a challenge, and they are going to attack her on that. And we can't say, oh, you're just hating. No, you have to examine it, because the fact is, all of us exist on the relationships. People like us, so they don't like us. So you get promoted, you get demoted, or you get frozen in place, depending upon who likes you. That's the way the world works, everybody. That's what my father told me. Look, I had to learn how to get along with folks, because at Howard, 70% of the students do not get on-campus housing. So when my father kind of looked into my not having my housing my sophomore year, not just immediately, he said, well, let me tell you something. Put in a good word for you, baby. But you know what? I have found that the people here really like you. Now, they wanted you to be a resident assistant, but you said no. Why? Dad, I just didn't want that. Deal with that. It's just too much adjective that goes into it. He said, well, if they thought well enough of you to ask you to guide some young people who are coming in, don't ever turn that down. I said, okay. He said, but I am finding that these people really like you. And baby, remember, relationships matter. He said, because Dad, and I never wanted my father to talk me into things, right? But I got that. So, I mean, Mr. Campbell, who headed up student housing, we were already good people. They started pulling the housing for me before the lotto, because they would do that. And so I'm just saying to y'all, wait a minute. Let's have a discussion here. And let's stop slamming each other, because you know what? After the first Tuesday in November, we all have to live together. And we got some real issues that we must confront. Mm-hmm. By 2085, it is projected that Black families will have negative net wealth. Whoever comes in needs to have a plan for that. I can't build this country and then 400 or 500 years in have no money. And if she's going to go into that office, I want to know what her plan is for me. And I'm not going to apologize or stutter about asking her about the plan, period. But what we're trying to do right now is dig into the issues that are confronting her, because she's going to have to answer some of these issues, Attorney Lamar. And she's not going to be able to avoid them. And those of us who support her, and I do, are not going to be able to say, oh, you all are just hating on her. No, she's going to have a real answer for these issues, because she is trying to get the most powerful seat in the world. Whatever problems America has right now, the presidency is the most powerful seat in the world, and they are not going to give it to you. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to fight like hell when you get there. That is the way the game is played, my friend. That is what you think Joe Biden wanted to let go of power? What? Oh, they have to force him to do that. This is the most powerful seat on earth. On earth. And so she is going to take some hits. And they're going to be big hits.
Big ones.
And they're going to be painful ones. Anyone in power has had to take some big hits. Painful ones. And you better, and you, as my grandma Helen used to say, may she rest in peace. If you can't take it, you can't make it.
I
Like
agree
that. If you
100%.
can't
I
take
mean,
it, you
Uh,
can't
uh,
make it.
no,
But
you can't, Attorney Lamar.
yes, I agree 100%. I mean, anytime you're trying to do something big in life, even besides just the president, if you're just trying to be something successful, you got to go through some ups and downs. There's going to be some challenges. And yes, he's going to have some things in her past you have to address. But at the same time, we must have our eyes open to both candidates in their past. Because both candidates, if you talk about just pure past,
Oh
I
my
think
God.
Donald Trump's past has been, it's out there too. So I think they both gonna have to address it, and how they respond would be, who you vote for. But at the end of the day, everything that we're talking about is really about, like you said earlier, what are you going to do to help us in the future? What are you going to do to help us have a better life for our grandkids and our great grandkids? Will they have a better America? Will they have an America? Or will we come out down a road of, have we peaked already? I don't want to say that we've peaked. So you want to get a candidate that's looking to the future, that's going to help us be a better society as a whole. Whether you're red or blue, I don't really care. We got to be able to come together once that election is made. I think recently in politics, we've been so divided that even when the election is made, we don't ever come back together and say, okay, let's get together and run the country together for 4 years, and then we'll go right back at it. We have to somehow come together through these time periods to know that whoever may win, we must join hands to lead our country into the future. Because if not, we are going to lose. And so you look at these other countries, like looking at history, like a Rome. How do you fall? You fall from within, not the outside. You fall
Absolutely.
from within. So we don't need to, go out here and keep fighting each other. No, we're gonna have big debates. We're gonna have a lot of very strong opinions. But I pray that at the end of the day, when November comes, that once whoever wins, we somehow come together so that we can make our whole country better. Because if not, we're doomed. No matter if it's red or blue, whoever wins, if we don't get together, we're gonna lose.
Because no matter who wins, we ought to win. That's my point. I was on PBS last night and they were, saying, what a great moment for Black women. I said, what a great moment for the country. That having been said, let us not mistake personal achievement for collective advancement.
Mm-hmm.
Black people struggling out here. Now Americans are struggling out here. The pneumonia I had, white folks now got a cold. And what is killing me is now I'm going to take them out soon. So we've got to answer some real questions, but you also have to be ready for this political season that
Yes.
we're in because it is going to be a rough one. And if it's not a rough one, you ought to be suspicious.
Super suspicious.
Super suspicious. Because you're dealing with power, everybody. Power.
but, as
Okay.
you pointed, but as you
I got a
pointed out,
couple minutes for you. Yes.
Santita, as you pointed out, this whole concept that even that Trump is the boogeyman or dictator and all this makes no sense. Our government, that can't happen in America. There can be no such thing as a dictatorship. There is such a thing as we could see because of what has happened. Excuse me, with President Biden as a machine. And for the first time in my life, for the last 2 weeks when they started all of this conversation, trying to force Biden out, I wrote the president a letter, President Biden, and I said to him, "Do not let yourself be bullied. It is not your responsibility. Quote is not the party. We voted for you as the president. We need you to act as a president. Do not let yourself be pushed around and pushed out. Who fights for this? You said the most important office in the world and then walks away. Who does this? I mean,
I don't
you can be defeated. You can
I don't,
let
I
me be defeated, but I'm not gonna be a coward and just step down.
I don't think, but and that's the thing, because the process was not transparent, Attorney Lamar and Attorney Bernard.
That's absolutely true.
People have a lot of questions because even they changed the rules yesterday, blocking people from mounting a
Nominating.
to Vice President Harris. That diminishes her. See, those are the things. So when I say that, and people say, "Oh, just let her get in," no, 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 no. Do unto the others as you would have them do unto you, but be very clear: what you've done unto the others will also be done unto you. Either we want democracy or not.
Correct.
So I mean, and she would be strengthened by the process. She's tough. She's tough. But certainly, I mean, we're not attacking her. This is not it. And that's why, you know, Attorney Lamar, it's like we're bringing up some things that are uncomfortable. But in this season, we're gonna have to hear all of it. And I hope, as Carol Soskin said, she said she'll have answers for them. I feel it. I believe she's ready for that. And I hope and pray that she's ready for the rude questions. I mean, because Donald Trump brought women who Bill Clinton allegedly slept with and put them in the family box at the debate. You remember that?
Yeah.
I was like, are you for real right now? This is horrific. Now, fortunately, they just had the good taste to say, no, y'all can't sit here. So every time Mrs. Clinton turns around, she sees you. Now she's tough,
Mhm.
but why would you do that to
Yeah,
somebody?
that's intense.
That's mean. I mean, really? Come on, y'all.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like I said, politics can get dirty. I hate that, but I really want people to get back to the roots of what really built the country up. As far as we need to know how to love one another beside you. And so we're gonna have our debates. We're gonna have go back and forth. And like when you're in grade school, you might have some kids say you get roasted, made fun of. That's okay, but we need to be able to move forward once we decide that hey, this is gonna be our president. So whoever it may be, they're gonna have to go through a very tough road, tough skin. And like I said, I do agree with you that it makes her better to go through this process, to have to go through it and earn these stripes, you would say. But at the end of the day, they both have past things that's going to be brought to the light. Neither one can be a perfect saint. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to decide, well, what do you care about and what do you not care about? And can you forgive versus, what, I can't get over what this person did. And at the end of the day, they both have a lot of big red flags, but they have some green flags as well. And we got to port those both out and then join hands in November and make this thing happen. Hopefully move the country forward. Because right now, the last, it seems like we're going a little bit backwards. And I want us to stop that if we can.
I hope so. I mean, and now people want you to run for president. Don't laugh.
It'd be fun, but I really want the best for people out here, man. It's I look at it and I know that we're all people, all going through our own internal struggles, but sometimes we get lost in our own views. And so we only can see what we see. But we got to understand there's a lot of other people in the world that see different viewpoints. And so if you're open to understanding it and being respectful to one another, we can actually be pretty great out here. But we got to be open to understand that every time you might not get your way, as long as it's not disrespectful what's going on, let's keep moving forward.
That's right.
And Santita,
I got 1 minute.
Okay, yeah. One of your viewers, I saw the comments, stated that Kamala had been the president of the Black Student Association in law school, which I'm very black. I was a member and a vice president, so I'm glad to see that. So I stand corrected on that issue of her not identifying quote as black traditionally. So thank you. I want to thank your audience for that.
Oh, well, first of all, let me say this.
I didn't know that.
Well, I have met Attorney Linda Bernard, as a freedom fighter. No one fights harder for those who are locked down, locked out, left out than Attorney Linda Bernard. You don't have to agree with everything that she says, but just know this. If you are in trouble, she has worked for people for free. I mean, and we're like, Linda, how are you going to make any money? She's like, but they need me. Attorney Lamar, stellar young man. I can see the future so bright for you, it blinds me. And I love the fact that you went into the system and said, wait a minute, I've got to figure out how I can defend people. My people who are most vulnerable, but all people. That's what this is about, everybody. So don't assign ignoble motives to people. Listen to folks. You're not going to agree with everybody. You're not. And you should not exact that of anybody. But let's be kind to each other. Maybe we can learn that in this moment, huh? And make sure that before you get who you want, you get what you need. No matter who goes in. And I hope it's Kamala Harris, because I think I might be able to reason with her a little bit better. But you know what? I do know that who brought the HBCU office back into the White House? Well, that was President Trump. Who started putting money back in the black colleges? That was President Trump. I got to give him credit for that. Getting some of our brothers and sisters out of prison, he did that. I appreciate that. But it's just some other things that made me go, okay. Like Biden did some things that made me go, yeah. And there's some other things that made me go, huh? So, I mean, we're all a mixture of a lot of things. We're all a mixture of a lot of things. And your race is not as important to me as your place. What have you learned wherever you are? If you come out of the Holocaust in Europe and you are killing people, you didn't learn your lessons. If you're Congolese and King Leopold killed 20 million black people in the Congo, and you come out as a murderer, you didn't learn your lesson. And God's going to get you for that. I love you, everybody. Second hour of Keep Up Alive. Wow. All the other.
There
All
you
the,
go.
Lord,
Say it
no,
again. Say it
no,
proud. Keep
no.
hope
Well,
alive.
I want you to keep up alive, but that's on Sunday. This is the Santita Jackson show. How about that? Attorney Keith Lamar, I love you.
you all.
Attorney Linda Bernard, I'm sending you so much love. Second hour, I've got Congressman Jonathan Jackson. If I don't get over there like right now, he's going to be very upset with me. Yes, and he's my brother because he's running. Okay, he went to the Netanyahu address, and I want to hear what he thinks. Love you, everybody. Second hour, keep Santita Jackson show. Just a minute.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Love you.
Love you.